Welcome to Detroit. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass. You can drown them. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be. Because that's our domain. That is our domain. Because we'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you.
Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery, right side, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions! Yes.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're diving on in. So folks, for this episode today, what we're going to be talking about is how it is my opinion, based upon everything that's being said, based upon all the reports that are coming out, that the Lions are going to be unlocking a new gear. They're going to be finding a way to get this offense even more explosive than what we have seen in the past. Now, I'm going to tell you this right now. It almost seems unfathomable to think of this offense being even more explosive than what it is currently right now. I mean, for crying out loud, last year, the Lions had the best offense in the NFL. Their offense was one of those that had multiple categories where, you know what, it was either considered the best offense in the league or one of the best offenses in NFL history. That's just how damn good this offense was last year. That's how explosive, that's how dynamic, that is how just, ridiculously overpowered this offense was. And when you talk about offense in the NFL, the innovation of offense in terms of what the NFL is looking for right now is that it's always trying to be pushed to the max. You're always trying to find more ways, better ways to attack and exploit a defense's weakness. And over the years, various techniques have been employed to try and get more production, to try and get more explosiveness out of offenses. And we have seen some rather unique, rather exotic NFL looks over the last, I'd say 2, 3, 4 decades. We saw the K-gun offense with the Buffalo Bills. We've seen currently now the option read offense, which has become a very popular, use, especially with more mobile quarterbacks. We have seen how different teams have employed the use of option routes with wide receivers. So it's like, okay, you know what? A wide receiver can go up to the line and they have 2 or 3 different options from one singular point to take that route based upon what the defensive coverage is showing them. We've also seen the Wildcat offense that came out for a couple of years ago, back when Tony Sparano was the head coach of the Dolphins. Man, I almost called him Tony Soprano. That would be that'd be an interesting head coach duo. Just saying. But here's what I will say. When we're talking about offenses, and we're talking about different ways and unique ways that offenses have employed various techniques to get an offense to be more dynamic, exotic, explosive, whatever term you'd like to use. Those are just some large overall concepts. But I'm going to tell you this right now. One of the most unique features that an offense can employ is what is known as a satellite attack from a running back. Now, when you have a running back that is known as a satellite back, this is a really devastating weapon to have in your offensive arsenal. Because now you have a running back that not only is exceptionally good at running the ball, but also at the same time is a gifted, talented, deadly receiver. And when you have a running back that can play like a wide receiver, it is a really tantalizing option to have. And when you think about it in terms of our offense, you guys already know who I'm referring to. You don't even have to think twice. I'm talking about Jahmyr Gibbs. And when you think about Jahmyr Gibbs and our offense, you have to already understand that our offense already has an exceptional rushing attack, which already opens and diversifies the offensive attack that we already have. But I'm going to say this. Jahmyr Gibbs has never been what would be considered a true satellite back or a true receiving back, at least in the NFL. Oh, sure, he's been used as it, and kind of sparing incidents and moments, but we've never actually seen the Lions truly use him not only as a rushing element, but also as a receiving element. And when you think about having Jahmyr Gibbs as a true satellite back, as a true running back who can also play as a wide receiver, whether it's coming out of the backfield or whether it's actually lining up as a wide receiver on the line, whether it's in the slot, whether it's out wide, whatever the case might be, dude, you have a new wrinkle to an offensive attack that provides an exotic feature that few offenses have ever really had or can fully take advantage of. Because again, like I've said, reports have been coming out of the Detroit Lions camp that Johnny Mo, for those that don't know who that means, that's Johnny Morton, who is, the offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions. He wants to use Jahmyr Gibbs in this way. He wants to employ him as more of a receiving element out on the line, whether it is as a wide receiver out wide, whether it's in the slot, whatever the case might be. And when you think about that, that is just a really just tantalizing offer. That is a really tantalizing idea to have. It's very exciting because you have to think about it. Imagine what Jahmyr Gibbs could do if you fully unlocked the ability for him to not only be a running, attack, but also a receiving weapon. So there's a lot of excitement about that. And I'm going to say this right now. I am immensely excited at the prospect of that. But, I'm going to say this, but when we're talking about this, one has to know that this also poses an immense amount of risk on the player on top of all that excitement, on top of all of that explosiveness. Because you have to understand something. The more you try and put a ball into a player's hands, the more you're going to, expose them to injury, the more strain you're going to put on them. So, yeah, it's an exciting thing to have, and I'm really looking forward to it. But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, just realize here, you're exposing Jahmyr Gibbs to more potential room for injury. But when we're having that conversation, we actually have to take a look at both the good and the bad about it. So let's first examine the good. Gibbs, as I said, unique, special talent in that he is one of the few players in the NFL that can quite literally flip a game on any given play. That is the kind of player that he is. He is literally lightning in a bottle. He can literally just, transform a game in one play. Absolutely flip it on its ear. His talent is, very much like some of the greatest running backs that have ever played in terms of his versatility, but also in terms of his explosiveness as far as a player is concerned. And when it comes to being a true satellite back, you can say that you truly have one when two things are true. One, the back is just as dangerous, just as deadly as a receiver as he is a runner, which, let's just call for what it is, Gibbs definitely is that. But also, the second thing, in my opinion, that makes one a true satellite back is having receiving production that is both prolific, but also consistent. And for me, when you start talking about some of the running backs that you would realistically think are true satellite backs, either over the entire course of their career or a good majority of it, or were for a small majority of it, you would then start thinking about guys like, Marshall Faulk. You'd start thinking about guys like McCaffrey. You'd start thinking about guys like Roger Craig, Alvin Kamara early on in his career. Those are guys who consistently, at one point or another, could literally destroy defenses through either both the ground or the air. It didn't matter. That's just how damn good they were and how hard it was to stop them. And I 100% believe in my heart of hearts that Gibbs possesses those characteristics in spades. But what makes this prospect even more special is that you have to think about some of those guys that I just talked about. Marshall Faulk, McCaffrey, Roger Craig, Kamara. Those are guys that never really had a good number 2 option who could help lessen the load. It was like, okay, you're the number 1 running back, but also at the same time, we're going to be using you almost like a number 1 wide receiver. It put an immense amount of strain on those guys. But the thing that makes this prospect really, really tantalizing, really good for the Lions, and why I believe John Morton is wanting to go this route, is because of the fact that they have a guy who is the number 2 back, but could be a very, very good number 1 back in this league, and has proven that in the past in David Montgomery. And let's just think about this. Could you honestly imagine an offensive formation that has David Montgomery in the backfield along with Jahmyr Gibbs on the receiving line? I mean, dude, defenses are going to be like, who do we stop? Who do we cover? How do we possibly, manage all of this offensive talent and firepower that is directly in front of us? Because it's one thing when you have just one running back in the backfield. It's like, okay, you know what? We've got that one running back. We can worry about him. But when you've got David Montgomery in the backfield, who is an absolutely just bruising, freaking freight train of a runner, but also has the ability to have breakaway speed, and then on top of that, you have Jahmyr Gibbs lined out wide, and we know how freaking deadly fast, insanely fast he is, and the fact that he has got such good hands, it's like, okay, here. You have to divert even more resources defensively to make sure you've got both of those guys covered. And that's what makes this idea of putting Gibbs on the offensive line as a receiver with David Montgomery in the backfield such an absolutely, delicious idea. But at the same time, it is a terrifying prospect for defenses to try and handle. And for me, when you think about, again, the talent that Gibbs has, it just makes this whole idea, this whole concept that much more deadly. And when you take a look at what Gibbs did last year, just in, that one season, and I'm not saying it's the only season that he's done it, but last year we got a really true taste of what Gibbs could be as a true satellite back, as a guy who can play both receiving and also who can also be a running attack. Last year, Gibbs was tied 11th in rushing attempts, but yet was ranked 5th in rushing yards, 3rd in rushing average, tied 1st in rushing touchdowns, but at the same time was ranked 6th in receiving, receptions for running backs, ranked 7th in targets, ranked 3rd in receiving yards for a running back, had the 17th best reception percentage of all running backs, was ranked 2nd in receiving average, and tied 2nd in receiving touchdowns for a running back. I mean, for crying out loud, I've said it before, I'll say it again. It didn't matter if Gibbs was getting the ball as a receiver or if he was getting the ball on a handoff. The guy is a monster. He is a weapon that if you just let him have the ball, he is going to make stuff happen. I mean, dude, when you're getting 5.5 more yards a pop when you're running the ball with him, or you're getting almost a first down when you're throwing the ball to him, it's like, dude, 1 or 2 plays, you're moving the chains with him, one way or the other. And so what those stats clearly show is that the Lions' offense, it can rely on Gibbs to be a dual threat running back. And it also shows that if they balance the rushing load, which is what the whole idea of putting Gibbs outside on the line for a couple of plays and also having Monty in the backfield, if they're able to balance that and find a good balancing of the rushing load between Monty and Gibbs, that could offset everything to where, okay, not only is Gibbs still a 1,000-yard plus rusher, but he also could become a 1,000-yard receiver in the same season. And that's where that true definition of a satellite running back specifically comes into play. Because here's what I'm going to tell you right now. Of all those running backs that I mentioned earlier, I'm talking about Marshall Faulk, I'm talking about, Kamara, I'm talking about, Roger Craig, I'm talking about McCaffrey, all those guys. When you go back to those guys, 3 of them that I mentioned had 1,000-yard receiving seasons, and at the same time had 1,000-yard rushing seasons. So they were 2,000-yard total scrimmage yards, players from both receiving and rushing. And I'm going to tell you this right now. There are only 5 running backs who have ever done that in the entirety of the NFL. Only 5. So think about this. You have Roger Craig, who's a Hall of Fame caliber running back. You have Marshall Faulk, Hall of Fame caliber running back. And those are guys that had Hall of Fame quarterbacks who facilitated both of them into getting those 1,000-yard receiving seasons while they had the 1,000-yard rushing seasons. That was Kurt Warner and Joe Montana. Now, McCaffrey, on the other hand, who I talked about, who is the third guy, he, on the other hand, when he got his 1,000-yard receiving season along with his 1,000-yard rushing season, you want to know who his quarterback was? Oh, that's right. That's the current Lions backup quarterback, Kyle Allen. And think about this. What this ought to show you is that there are, 2 separate facts. One, that a great running back can make it substantially easier to accomplish this feat because, McCaffrey, Falk, and, Craig, those guys are all great running backs. But also, 2, it shows that Goff is more than capable of ensuring and finding a way for Gibbs to accomplish this very, very rare and difficult feat. So there's that. Now that's the good element to this. But like I said, as much as this is exciting and as much as this is something that, I have great anticipation for, caution and using an extreme amount of, okay, we need to make sure we're not overdoing this, has to also be used and practiced in equal measure. And here's the reason why. Because Marshall Faulk, as I said, after he got his dual 1,000-yard seasons, he only had 2 more 1,000-yard rush seasons for the rest of his career. And he never, ever started all 16 games in a season ever again. You take a look at Roger Craig. Much the same story as Marshall Faulk. But he was actually able to have 1 full season of being able to play after he did that. And then when you take a look at Christian McCaffrey, again, it's been the same story. You're talking about guys that, hey, you know what? For a year or 2, they were able to do something super rare, super special. But afterwards, they were never able to fully do the exact same things that they were, supposedly able to do earlier on because of the massive toll that it takes on the body. But again, that's why I'm saying with having David Montgomery, you lessen that substantially because when Marshall Faulk was with the Rams, there was no number 2 guy to him. It was, okay, Marshall Faulk is the guy. He's going to be out there as much as we possibly can put him out there, whether it's in the backfield or on the line. Roger Craig, same damn thing. Christian McCaffrey, same damn thing. And so that's why I'm saying I am super excited about the prospect of having Gibbs lined up out wide and thus having Monty on the field at the same time. But again, as I am saying, I would exercise caution to make sure that, hey, you know what? We're not overdoing it and putting Gibbs at a risk for not only his health short term, but long term. But again, I'm telling you, this whole concept, this whole prospect is just an absolutely wonderful thing that I think John Morton is hitting upon because it is going to further add to matchup nightmares for defenses to try and handle, as having one on the field at any given time is bad enough. But having both on the field at the same time, dude, that's almost impossible to even think about trying to stop. But the thing of the matter is, it's not just Gibbs that we have to talk about with the Lions, flexing their muscle. The other thing we have to talk about that John Morton is also, reporting, or rather it's being reported from John Morton and also from players at camp, is how they're wanting to get Jamo more involved in the offense. They're wanting to expand him. They're wanting to unleash him. And the reason why I'm saying that is also important is because, first and foremost, take a look at what Jamo did last year. Last year, Jameson Williams had an explosive season, was able to explode on the scene finally for the Lions, and that Lions fans had been long waiting for. But just take a look at the numbers. He was tied 25th in receptions and targets. He was ranked 21st in receiving yards, ranked number 1 in reception per average, tied 10th in passing touchdowns caught, and ranked 29th in first downs. So yeah, while 2024 was a great year for Jameson Williams, you have to think about it here. There is so much more that is in store for him. 2024, yeah, while that was a great year for him, if you want to talk about that as an explosion season, the best way I could describe it was a mini explosion season. It's like, okay, yeah, he exploded onto the scene, but that's not the full true measure of what he can do. Because again, John Morton is wanting to, like I said, expand what Jamo can do in the offense by expanding his route tree, which is going to allow him to have more freedom and ability to attack opposing coverages. And at the same time, it's going to open the offense for even more new play concepts, which will allow Jamo to, kind of take more further advantage of his unique and explosive, skill set. And what that means is two separate things in and of itself. One, further opening up the pass game in general for all wide receivers. But also number two, it means that Goff and the offense will be able to further increase their quick strike capability in terms of their offensive attack. And it will especially be increased because, again, just because Gibbs is going to be out on the offensive line as a receiver doesn't mean nobody else is. Can you imagine? Just think about this. Imagine an offensive set where you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, you've got Jamo, and you've got Gibbs lined out there with Laporta as a tight end and Montgomery in the backfield. Who in the absolute hell do you try and cover? And furthermore, how do you cover it? Again, I've talked about it before, but when you take a look at what Jared Goff did last year in terms of getting the ball out in less than 2.5 seconds or, whatever, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in doing that. I'll put the stats up on the screen. But you're talking about a guy that has lightning fast processing speed. And when you got Jamo and Gibbs out there as a receiving element, oh, good Lord. Like, dude, defensive cornerbacks are not going to be able to know what the hell to do. You can't process that fast. You can't react that fast. And on top of that, there's all the funny little things that the freaking Lions could do with that. I mean, they could expand further upon hook and ladders. They could do, rollouts. They could do, crossing methods. They could do option routes. There is so much stuff they could do with having both Jamo and Gibbs out on the offensive line at the same damn time. And by doing that, it is going to throw a massive monkey wrench and confusion element towards defenses. Because it's like, you can't possibly stop both of them. And if you try, okay, now you leave Amon-Ra St. Brown open, or you leave Sam Laporta open, or you leave freaking Demo to try and run the ball down your throat up the middle. It's like, dude, you can't stop everything. You just can't. You can only hope to try and get something stopped and hope that somewhere along the way our offense just screws up, which that's not going to happen very likely. But what makes this even better is take a look at what Goff was able to do when was throwing to both Jamo and Gibbs in 2024. Just to those two guys, because that's who we're talking about in this episode, is Jamo and Gibbs. In 2024, when Goff threw to those guys, he was 110 of 154 for 71.4 completion percentage rate, just a smidge over 1,500 passing yards, 10 an average a throw, 11 touchdowns for 7.1 touchdown percentage, 4 interceptions for 2.6 interception percentage per throw, with a 116.4 passer rating. That is absolutely stupendous numbers. You've got literally almost a 3-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. You almost have 120 passer rating, over 70 completion percentage rate, and 1,500 yards of actual air production. Like, good Lord. And what makes it even better is this. Those 110 completions and 154 attempts, that literally only accounted for about 28 to 28.5% of Goff's total, completions and attempts from last year. But the yards and the passing touchdowns, those both account for 30% or more of his actual production in those statistical categories. So what that ought to show you is that despite the fact the Lions sparingly used Gibbs in the passing attack last year, there is immense room for further exploitation there, especially when you consider how much more that Jamo is also going to be getting and giving as well, because both of those guys there, like I said, they accounted for less than 30% of the throws that Goff threw to them, but yet they accounted for a third of his yards and touchdowns combined. That tells me right there that there is an untapped well for both Goff and Morton to exploit within this offense. That's why my thumbnail image is exactly the way it is. Supercharged Detroit muscle. You get the ball into both those guys' hands, dude, you are not going to be able to stop it. I don't give a damn who you think you are. The only way you're going to stop it is by trying to get to Goff as fast as you possibly can. And like I just showed a couple of moments ago, Goff can get the ball out faster than 2.5 seconds, almost better than anybody in the damn NFL. That's how good he is at that. So pretty much the only way the defense can stop an offense like ours is hope and pray like dear heaven and hell, somehow you can get to Goff before he can throw the ball. That's literally what it comes down to. Because Goff, you give him time, he'll pick apart a defense because he knows where the coverages are at. He's accurate as hell. Oh, you try and stop that? We can run the ball. Oh, you now try to stop the run? We're going to start to go to play action passing. You cannot stop us. There's no way you can stop it. All you can hope is that you try and slow us down. That's literally what it comes down to. And good luck trying to slow down a super processor of a quarterback and two speed demons in Gibbs and Jamo. Good freaking luck. But anyway, folks, I just wanted to talk about this because the more I thought about it, the more excited I got about it. But again, there's so much to consider with this. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of concepts that can go into this. And again, I'm only scratching the surface. I guarantee you this, Goff, Morton, Gibbs, Jamo, they've got a whole freaking slew of stuff that they're working on, and I cannot wait for the season to come so that way we can see it all unveiled. But anyway, folks, I just want to say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like the content and if you've not subscribed, please, I highly, highly encourage y'all to subscribe. It really helps out the channel. But I also want to encourage those that have subscribed and those that are about to subscribe, please make sure that you hit that bell notification icon as well. That also helps out because it makes sure that you guys keep coming back because you turn the notification on. I hope everybody has something in their life that makes them happy, makes them smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.